December 3rd, 1993, Medellin stops breathing. A body lies on the roof of a modest house, surrounded by soldiers pierced by bullets. That body was the most wanted man in the world. His name, a synonym for terror, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, the boss of the Medellin cartel, the architect of modern drug trafficking, the man who defied the Colombian state, the United States government, the DEA, the CIA, and anyone who dared to cross him. But what came after was more shocking than his death. More than 20,000 people poured into the streets to say goodbye, with flowers, with tears, with gratitude. They did not hate him, they worshipped him. How can someone who killed thousands be loved by so many? Was Pablo Escobar a monster? Or was he the inevitable result of a broken country? Escobar was born on December 1st, 1949 in Rio Negro, Antioquia. He was the third of 7 siblings. His father was a farmer, his mother a school teacher, a humble, hard-working family, but marked by poverty. Pablo grew up with one obsession: never to be poor again. From a young age, he showed signs of leadership, charisma, and a sharp analytical mind. He disliked school, but he learned fast. He had no patience for authority, but an incredible talent for manipulating it. As a teenager, he was already known in Envigado for his street cunning. He stole tombstones from cemeteries to resell them, forged school diplomas, sold contraband cigarettes. But all of that was only training. His real university was organized crime. By the age of 20, he already had contacts with local traffickers. He started as a messenger, then as a transporter, and little by little as an organizer. Pablo observed, learned, and above all, planned. His mind worked like that of a military strategist, always 3 steps ahead. He did not just want to be rich, he wanted to be legendary. What started as a street contraband would soon become a global business. Pablo Escobar was about to discover white gold, cocaine. By the mid-70s, the world was starting to talk about a new drug, cocaine. The United States began consuming it massively, especially in nightclubs, elite parties, business circles, and the arts. And while demand grew in North America, supply was born in South America. Colombia had everything: jungles, natural roads, lack of state control, and an entire generation hungry for opportunity. Pablo saw in cocaine more than just a business. He saw a gateway to a new kind of power. Along with his cousin Gustavo Gaviria, he built a production and a trafficking network that soon became the largest and most efficient on the planet. How did he do it? First, own production. He bought land in remote areas, financed hidden labs in the jungle, controlled the supply chain from the coca leaf to the final base. Second, innovation in routes. They used private planes, human mules, modified shipping containers, even clothing soaked in cocaine. They invented unthinkable hiding methods, from jean seams to canned goods. Third, distribution in the US. He built networks in Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. He paid off police officers, judges, customs agents, and politicians. Each shipment was worth millions, and every week dozens crossed the borders. The business was so profitable, it became absurd. At its peak, the Medellin cartel earned more than $60 million a week. What do you do with that much money? You buy everything. And Pablo did. Millions started pouring in, but for Escobar, money was not the end. It was the means to build something much more ambitious, an empire that could not be stopped. Pablo was not just a drug lord. He was a businessman, a banker, a politician in practice, and above all, a master of influence. When he began to amass wealth, the first thing he understood was this: real power is not in money, it lies in what you can make others do with it. He bought houses, ranches, luxury cars, properties inside and outside the country. But he also bought officials. He paid double and triple salaries to police officers so they would look the other way. He handed out briefcases full of dollars to prosecutors and judges. He financed entire political campaigns. His motto was simple, brutal, and effective: silver or lead. Either you accepted the money or you ended up on the list of the dead. And that list was long. And like every emperor, Escobar needed his own kingdom, a place that not only showed his wealth, but his absolute power. As money kept pouring in by the ton, Pablo Escobar built something that looked like it came out of a science fiction movie. On the outskirts of Puerto Triunfo, about 180 kilometers from Medellin, he bought a property of 1,600 hectares and transformed it into his private empire, Hacienda Napoles. It was much more than a ranch. It was a city, a fortress, a kingdom with its own king. It had an airstrip, hangars for planes, multiple residences, swimming pools, a bull ring, a go-kart track, soccer fields, and a personal zoo. Escobar imported more than 1,500 exotic animals from all over the world: African hippos, elephants, zebras, flamingos, giraffes, kangaroos. Many of these animals had never before set foot on Colombian soil. Children from nearby neighborhoods were invited to see the animals as if it were an amusement park. Adults, on the other hand, were invited to private parties, business meetings, or to pledge loyalty, because that was what Napoles represented, the nucleus of his power. There, Escobar was not just the cartel boss, he was El Patron, the host, the protector, the god of his own universe. Security cameras, hidden snipers, escape tunnels, everything was designed to protect him. From that place, Escobar made decisions that affected not only Colombia, but the entire hemisphere. But behind the ranch, the zoo, and the parties, there was a mind obsessed with control, detail, and dominance. While many saw him as just a vulgar mobster, the truth was that Escobar was much more than that. He had a lethal, strategic mind. It was not only about money, it was about emotional intelligence, psychology, control. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he never rested until he got it. When a target slipped away, he did not forget it. He surrounded it, wore it down, and destroyed it. He was patient and lethal. He did not only recruit killers, he recruited accountants, lawyers, chemists, engineers, pilots, publicists, even priests. His organization had precise hierarchies, defined roles, an internal code of loyalty and silence, and above them all, him, El Patron. From Hacienda Napoles, Escobar designed operations that moved tons of cocaine every month. He directed bombings with surgical precision, ordered multiple murders with a single phone call, but he also hosted family lunches, played soccer with his children, wrote love letters to his wife. That duality bewildered everyone. How could a man who ordered the murder of a judge cry while watching cartoons with his daughter? Maybe that was his true skill, acting exactly like the person he needed to be, depending on the moment. He controlled the money, he controlled his enemies, but what made him eternal in the memory of the people was how he controlled their hearts. Here is where everything gets complicated, because if Escobar had only been a murderous millionaire, no one would have loved him. But Pablo did something that changed the narrative forever. He helped the poor, and not like a politician during a campaign. He went in person. He stepped out of the helicopter with wads of cash. He sat with entire families, learned their names, their stories, their struggles. He built more than 300 houses for displaced and homeless families. He gave them electricity, water, food, and safety. He founded entire neighborhoods, built schools, paid teachers, funded health clinics, sponsored sports tournaments, donated money to youth soccer teams, financed scholarships for talented students. When someone died in his neighborhood, Pablo paid for the funeral. When someone got sick, he paid for the treatment. When someone wanted to study, he bought the books. While the estate was nowhere to be found, Escobar was there. For thousands of people, he was more than a drug lord. He was the only one who saw them, and that created something stronger than fear: loyalty. Is it possible that the same man who planted bombs in shopping malls was also the one who gave your family a home? How do you judge him, if thanks to him you no longer slept on the floor? For many, Pablo Escobar was not the enemy. He was the only real leader they ever knew. And with thousands of people worshiping him as a savior, Escobar felt he no longer needed to hide. He wanted to enter the formal game of power, and so the most wanted criminal became a congressman. He already had economic power. He already had social power. But there was something else Pablo Escobar craved: legitimacy. He wanted to enter the institutions, not just to shield himself, but to control the rules of the game from the inside. In 1982, Escobar allied with a civic movement called Liberal Alternative, which sought to renew politics from a social perspective. It was the perfect opportunity. He was elected as an alternate congressman in the House of Representatives. He was no longer just a kingpin. He was the Honorable Representative Escobar Gaviria. He had parliamentary immunity, official protection, access to political decisions, and contact with influential figures. He gave speeches about equality, justice, and the need to help the forgotten. He appeared on television. He smiled. He portrayed himself as a family man concerned for his country. But the theater did not last long. The public downfall. One of the few men who dared confront him was Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, Minister of Justice under then-President Belisario Betancourt. Lara publicly denounced Escobar's criminal ties. Shortly after, the newspaper El Espectador, under the direction of Guillermo Cano, revealed documentation linking Escobar to his first arrest for drug trafficking. The pressure became unbearable. Escobar was forced to resign from Congress, and in his mind, this was not just a political defeat. It was a declaration of war. Rodrigo Lara was gunned down. Guillermo Cano, too. Both had become enemies of El Patron, and Escobar did not leave enemies alive. His brief stint in politics ended up being the point of no return. From that moment on, Pablo transformed into what many call his most dangerous version, a wounded man thirsty for vengeance. But political power is another kind of jungle, and Escobar quickly turned from politician to enemy of the state. After his exit from Congress, Escobar dedicated himself to dismantling the system from the outside. His main objective was to avoid extradition to the United States, which was already approved through bilateral treaties, because Escobar knew that in Colombia he had power, but in the US he would not last a day. So he launched a campaign of terror, explosions, massacres, collective fear. He planted a bomb at the DAS headquarters, killing more than 60 people. He brought down an Avianca plane with 107 passengers, believing that a political enemy was on board. He ordered the murders of hundreds of police officers, literally offering cash rewards for each policeman killed. The message was simple: if you want war with me, you will have war. And the country collapsed. There was not a single day without attacks. News reports opened with death tolls. Citizens lived in fear of going to work or school. Pablo Escobar had become a national threat, but also a kind of parallel state. Through his network of influence, he controlled judges, mayors, police commanders, customs officials, and even ministers. And the worst part, many let him act out of fear or money. The United States, alarmed by the level of impunity, began to act. The DEA and the CIA launched joint operations with the Colombian government. They trained special commandos. They armed the search block, an elite force created specifically to hunt Escobar. And yet, they could not catch him. Escobar had eyes and ears everywhere. He knew the army's movements before the soldiers themselves. He had hideouts all over the country, secret tunnels, safe houses. And above all, he had the support of many communities who protected him, because for them, Pablo was still El Patron. With half the country trembling, the government gave in. Escobar would surrender, but on his terms. After years of war and unbearable international pressure, in 1991, Escobar proposed a shocking deal. I will surrender, but under my conditions, and the government accepted. The main condition, Escobar would build his own prison. Thus, La Catedral was born, built on a hill with a panoramic view, isolated from everything, designed by architects he trusted. At first glance, it looked like a prison, but it was the opposite. La Catedral had private suites, gourmet kitchen, pool hall, jacuzzi, satellite television, a bar, a soccer field, a private chapel, a meeting room, and most importantly, no state authority could enter. It was his fiefdom, his refuge, his operations center. From there, Escobar still ran the cartel. He received visitors, celebrated birthdays, ordered executions. It was a prison only on paper. He even murdered 2 partners inside La Catedral for disobeying him. That was too much. The government, internationally humiliated, decided to move him to a real prison. But Escobar was one step ahead. He escaped. With the help of his men, he fled without firing a single shot. And so began the final chapter of his life, the most intense manhunt in Colombia's history. The estate thought they had him under control, but no one controls El Patron. Escobar escaped, and the deadliest chase in the country's history began. After his escape from La Catedral in 1992, the Colombian government could not afford another mistake. Escobar, once again a fugitive, became the #1 target of the authorities and of the world. The United States increased its pressure, the DEA intensified operations, and the search bloc, together with US intelligence, doubled their efforts to capture him. But this time, there was another enemy, one without uniforms, without flags, one that knew him from the inside, Los Pepes, perseguidos por Pablo Escobar, persecuted by Pablo Escobar, a deadly alliance between former cartel associates, political enemies, paramilitaries, and infiltrated agents. Their mission was simple: destroy everything connected to Escobar. They burned houses, tortured informants, murdered the relatives of his allies. It was a war without rules. For more than a year, Pablo lived in hiding. He moved every 48 hours. He slept in borrowed houses, abandoned farms, windowless rooms. He carried only what was necessary: 2 bodyguards, 2 phones, canned food, and a pistol. The man who once lived among hippos and private jets was now hiding like an animal. He could not see his family, nor his children, nor go out during the day. And yet he kept making phone calls, because even underground he was still El Patron. What he did not know was that one of those calls would be his death sentence. After 16 months in hiding, alone, paranoid, and with the world against him, Pablo made a mistake. December 2nd, 1993, one day after his 44th birthday. From a modest house in the Los Olivos neighborhood of Medellin, Pablo Escobar made a phone call to his son, Juan Pablo. A brief conversation, heavy with nostalgia, fear, and love. That call was intercepted, the signal triangulated, the location confirmed. The search bloc mobilized. Nearly 500 men surrounded the area. Escobar, with his small security detail, tried to escape across the rooftops. Barefoot, shirtless, gun in hand, the shooting began, and seconds later, his body fell. 3 impacts: leg, torso, and head. Silence. At last, it was over. The most feared, most pursued, most wanted man lay dead on the tiles of a common house. No palace, no mansion, no army, just a body, just a corpse. Some say he was shot down by police. Others claim he took his own life to avoid capture. The truth is lost among the testimonies. But one thing is not disputed. That day, an era ended. An era of blood, power, fear, and fascination. The death of Escobar marked the end of an era. But what came next was not celebration. It was mourning. What happened next surprised the world. Instead of celebration, there were tears. Instead of relief, there was mourning. More than 20,000 people filled the streets to accompany his body to the cemetery. Entire neighborhoods dressed in black. Rosaries were prayed, letters written, banners hung with phrases like, "Thank you, patron. We will never forget you, the only one who helped us." While the government celebrated the end of narco-terrorism, the people said goodbye to a leader. The paradox? How is it possible? How could a murderer, a terrorist, a drug trafficker be mourned by thousands? The answer is neither comfortable nor simple. Pablo Escobar was not only a criminal. For many, he was the only face of power that had ever reached out to them. When the state failed, Pablo was there. When no one gave them housing, Pablo built them homes. When they had no school, no hospital, no hope, Pablo arrived by helicopter with solutions. And so, the great question, was Pablo Escobar the product of his own evil Or was he the result of a country that abandoned its people? Did he really die? Pablo died in 1993, but his shadow remains alive. Today, decades later, his name still sparks fear and admiration. His face appears on t-shirts, murals, mugs, television series. His story is told in documentaries, novels, TikToks, movies, and memes. But beyond the fascination, there is a painful truth. Escobar did not invent corruption, nor inequality, nor violence. He only learned to use them better than anyone else. And as long as those conditions remain, the world will continue creating new Escobars, with different names, with different faces, but with the same roots. This was just one of the great enigmas of history. And here at Enigmaze, we will keep uncovering many more. Subscribe and join us in the next mystery.